Welcome everyone to today's Marine Interfaith Council meditation. My name is Scott Quinn. I serve as Executive Director of the Marine Interfaith Council, and today you get to hear me for the meditation, so thank you for joining us. I'm going to start by sharing with us a couple of slides. Can everybody see that? So Pierre Desjardins was a Jesuit priest, a paleontologist, and a writer and teacher. He lived from 1881 to 1955. And his writings sought to find a convergence between science and religion and spirituality. And as one might expect at the time, while he was not excommunicated, he was forbidden from teaching publicly. And so his writings and his teachings were largely and mostly appreciated after his death. So let's take a look at one of his main teachings, and this will lead into our meditation. And one caveat, this is a really cursory high-level look at something that's very complex and very deep. And so I apologize in advance that just because of our time constraints, this does not do justice to his theology and his philosophy, but it gives you a flavor for what he was talking about, knowing that what he talks about is far more complex than what I'm going to present. So caveats all done. Let's take a look at one of his main teachings was about the omega point and the noosphere. And this is what, from Wikipedia, a brief summary of that. He talked about the unfolding of the material cosmos so evolution, right, is described from moving from primordial particles to the development of life, to human beings and the noosphere, which we'll talk about in a moment, and finally to his vision of an omega point in the future in which all of creation is pulled toward this culminating point, which he called the omega point. Now the noosphere, this comes from the Greek word nous, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. So for him, as a Christian theologian, his cosmology was that there's the cosmic Christ, or the omega, the endpoint of revelation. And that the Christ, and he would separate this, as many theologians do, from Jesus. So the Christ in John chapter 1, the idea of the Logos. You read about in John chapter 1, the Gospel of John, the Logos, which is the first principle of God through whom everything's made. And then, so that is an emanation of God, made of matter. So it's where the beyond matter divine comes into matter and experiences the nature of evolution by being born into this world and dying. And so when you think then about this cosmological process to Christ in the person of Jesus, that then the resurrection from the dead in his cosmology is not to heaven, but to the noosphere, which is the area of convergence of all spirituality and all spiritual beings. And when the earth reaches this omega point, so everything is moving forward in this noosphere, which we'll talk about in a second, and everything is moving toward this point of culmination where everything tips over into God. And he made a point about this, which obviously did not go over well, that the Catholic Church, if it's going to present this idea of the Christ, and the Christ as this evolutionary principle, and that we're all evolving into higher and higher consciousness, if you will, into God, into a spiritual realm, into God. That's the point of creation. The point of creation is go to this omega point into divine union. And he said that for the Catholic Church to really get with the reality of what's happening and talk about something like this, you have to present a universal Christ, that the Christ is this human cosmic dimension as the animator of evolution, so that when you read Christ in the Bible, it's as the animator of evolution. So obviously, this is a very deep and complex philosophy. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in a second. But you can kind of get the gist of what he's saying. So religion and science converging in the sense that when you read in the Bible about the Christ, you read in the Gospel of John about the Logos, that this is evolution in action, and that all of evolution is headed toward this point of culmination, which he called the omega point. So let me just talk a little bit more about that, and then we can take a pause if we wish. So this idea of the noosphere is playing on the Greek term nous, N-O-O-S, or N-O-U-S, depending on how people transliterate it. And in Greek, this means the knowing of the intellect, heart, and intuition. So in biblical Greek, that's kind of the realm of its semantic understanding. And then in Neoplatonism, it had a more specific use, referring to first principles or divine reason. First principles or divine reason. So in his cosmology, in Teilhard's cosmology, evolution is a process in which it's becoming aware of itself, and which has now reached the stage in which humans, us, we're collectively not only becoming aware of the divine evolutionary process of which we're a part, but we're also consciously connecting with it and can advance it toward this point, toward this omega point, toward a tipping point culminating in divine union. So the noosphere is this spiritual convergence of our evolutionary process, and it's all moving toward this omega point. And so his idea is that we're in this evolutionary process, and it's all coming toward a tipping point, which eventually culminates in divine union. That's the end point, the goal of evolution. And so in a sense, we have what we're doing by our spiritual practice, by consciously engaging our spirituality. This is an act of intentional co-participation in God's evolutionary process. And while it's personal for each of us, it's not private. We're doing this not just for ourselves, but for the sake of the whole world and for the sake of evolution. And in consciously welcoming the transformation into divine mind, into the divine nous, we're collectively living the renewal of humanity. We're realizing our interwoven connectedness in God and growing in it, toward it, as it. So one might say we're allowing God to attune us until humanity reaches a new tipping point and another tipping point until everything tips over into and as God. So a pretty lofty and beautiful theological and philosophical vision that merges together spirituality and science. Just pause for a moment if there are any just questions about that. I know there's a whole lot we could say. I would like to kind of transfer us into our spiritual practice about it, but does that make sense in general? Just the big picture of that? Okay. So I'm going to invite you just for a moment of reflection before we go into our meditation. So just to think about this for just a moment, and then we'll do our meditation. What might your role be in furthering human evolution? Big question, right? I know it's an outlandish question, but what if in your own way, living God consciously, knowing that we're of the spiritual realm, you're participated in humanity waking up and evolving into God. You're part of the tipping that eventually tips over. If that's true, what might be your contribution? What might that look like? Who is side by side with you in this? Who might you join hands with in this waking up? So this idea of the noosphere had me pondering another little twist on this, which is about what about our inner noosphere that we can cultivate and in so doing further the noosphere. And so it reminded me in the Christian scriptures of in the book of Hebrews, the 12th chapter, where there's a passage that says, "Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, we must lay aside every weight and all that entangles us and run with endurance the race set before us." Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, we must lay aside every weight and all that entangles us and run with endurance the race set before us, right? So if we were to take Teilhard, that's like the evolutionary race set before us. And the writer of that scripture had just finished an exhaustive recap of the people of faith in the Hebrew scriptures, going through all the great people of faith, who now, though deceased, form this great cloud of witnesses to faith, encouraging us onward in our own race toward greater wholeness, toward union, toward connection in God, and how we live that in this world. That was his, or the writer's, encouragement. So that's going to be our meditation today. I'm going to invite us to center down into this great cloud of witnesses, this past, present, and future noosphere of which we're all a part. So you ready to take a trip into the cloud? All right. So here we go. And I need to spotlight myself. Okay. So I invite you to center yourself in a comfortable position. Get yourself comfortable in your chair and find just the right place for your body, or however you're sitting or laying down. And allow your eyes to close or just gently gaze at a place in front of you. I invite you to bring your attention to your breath. And with each breath, to more deeply, deeply let go. Relax. Relaxing down through your forehead, your eyes, your face, your jaw. And there's a soothing oozing of relaxation moving down your neck, into your shoulders. With each breath, a little more relaxed. Down further into your chest, your torso, and the relaxation going deeper into your pelvis and your legs, all the way down through the soles of your feet. Each breath more deeply relaxes you in the safe and welcoming place of your own being. I invite you to bring into your mind's eye to imagine a place of spaciousness. It might be a beach, a meadow, a forest clearing, a large cathedral. Choose a spacious place in which you wish to rest for a while, in your own imagination. Imagine also that this space starts to glow with a gentle radiance, a warm light that embraces you with a kind of indescribable love that permeates everything. Into this space, this place of grace, of radiance, of glowing love, you can invite anyone you wish to be with you, to support you in your own life, to bring you insight, comfort, resilience, clarity. So into this expansive space filled with this warm glow, you can begin, if you wish, by inviting into this space a spiritual figure of your choosing. Perhaps it's Mary, Buddha, Jesus, Rumi, Francis of Assisi, Muhammad. Let whoever comes, come. Some spiritual figure of your own choosing. And allow their presence to nourish you. They also are bathing you in this warm light. And notice what interaction wants to happen. Perhaps they have a gift to offer you. Perhaps there's a question you'd like to ask. Maybe you'd like their insight on how you can contribute to human awakening. Or maybe something else is on your heart and mind. Just let whatever emerges emerge, and we'll have a little silence for that. And imagine them taking their place at your side, if you wish. And next, you may invite into your awareness someone you've known in this life who's no longer on the earthly plane. A relative, a friend, a teacher, someone who is part of your cloud of witnesses, cheering you on from beyond in some way we cannot comprehend, yet with which we can connect in some mysterious way. See who comes. Likewise, allow their presence to nourish you. They may have a gift to offer you. Perhaps there's a question you'd like to ask, or maybe you'd like their wisdom on what role you might have in human awakening. Or perhaps there's something else that wants to happen. Just let whatever emerges emerge, and we'll have a little silence. If you wish, you can invite them to take their place at your side. And next, you can invite someone or something more than human to join you. Perhaps a beloved animal companion. Maybe it's a place in nature that's been special to you. Maybe it's a particular kind of flower or tree or animal or mountain. Let whatever come, come. Likewise, allow their presence to nourish you. Perhaps they have a gift to offer you. Or perhaps there's a question you'd like to ask. Their wisdom. Let whatever emerges, emerge. As they also join you, you notice that there are many more potential beings that you can call into awareness as part of your own cloud of witnesses. Take a look around. Who all is in your cloud? Who might you like to add to your cloud? And of course, you can return here anytime to seek their companionship, wisdom, nourishment, and encouragement. For now, we call on their combined presence to enable you to take your own place in the cloud of witnesses, stretching across time and space, beyond life and death, touching into the noosphere, into the divine sacred beingness, and the all-connective reality of humankind evolving in God. And as you sense your own place in this great glowing presence, I'm going to offer a series of brief questions, each followed by a pause, and invite you just to notice what arises in response to these questions. Surrounded and supported by this glowing presence and cloud of witnesses. First question: how might you, while still on this earth, help elevate, heal, or simply be a divine witness in this world? How might you participate in humanity waking up and evolving into God? What might your contribution be? How might you participate in humanity waking up and evolving into God? What might your contribution be? Who is side by side with you in this? With whom might you create, elevate, encourage, and nourish? Who is side by side with you in this waking up? With whom might you create and elevate, nourish? What might be one next step you take together? What might be one next step you take together? And for whom might you become part of their still on this earth cloud of witnesses, cheering them on, encouraging them as they run this race in the divine? For whom might you become part of their cloud of witnesses while still on this earth, cheering them on with encouragement as they run this divine race? The cloud of witnesses surrounds you, permeates your physical real world life from this realm of spirit. And so you too are inextricably infused into the cloud, the noosphere, the holy presence in this world. And so now it's time to return to normal conscious awareness. I invite you to be mindful of any gifts that you take with you, any insights. To express your gratitude to the cloud of witnesses that's cheering you on. Whether or not you think of them, they are constantly with you, rooting for you, and calling you into deeper love, into a renewed divine mind, moving you forward in your own race. You are not alone. And when you're ready, I invite you to bring your attention back to your body. particularly back to your breath, allowing the inhale and the exhale to come into your awareness, observing it happening all on its own, simply carrying you as it always does. Might bring your attention to your toes and let them wiggle. Same with your fingers. And when you're ready, please feel free to gently open your eyes. And we'll have a minute or two of silence, either just to be with what came forward, if there are any notes that you want to take or journal, and then we'll come back and have a time for sharing. Our closing poem is from the Christian mystic Meister Eckhart. It is your destiny to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels. How is this possible? How? Because divine love cannot defy its very self. Divine love will be eternally true to its own being, and its being is giving all it can at the perfect moment. And the greatest gift God can give is God's own experience. Every object, every creature, every man, woman, and child has a soul. And it is the destiny of all to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels, to be as God is. Thank you, dear ones. Much love and blessings to each of you.